when you see a crack in the wall, you're like, oh, Fauci was wrong about not wearing masks at the beginning of this pandemic. Well, then you, in sort of excitement of seeing that the authority is wrong, someone might go, oh, he's completely wrong about everything. He must be a liar. He must
Right.
be deceptive. He must be evil. And what I think a medical professional would do, or someone who's just really honest and curious, they would see that crack and then they would start to explore and realize all the context around that crack, all the wall, is an abundance of information that you have to understand that crack in context.
And, let's talk about that, right? Fauci said masks are not a high necessity, right? It was like at the beginning, it was like there is a huge necessity to wear a mask. That was back in February, March, right?
Even, yeah.
And that was based on a limited understanding at that point in time of how the virus spread. It was believed that because this is like SARS and or Asian flu, right, or bird flu, this was more of a direct contact type of spread. So it would spread more through the hands and through the touching your face, so kind of collecting liquids and fluids from your face and then transferring to your hands and then transferring them on people or objects as you touch things around. In April, it was very clear, even before April, it then became very clear that transmission was actually first through droplets. So by people being close by, they saw that the people were getting infected even without any physical touch. Right. And then they realized that it was even more insidious than this, because the distance at which the infections occurred was much greater than the distance at which traditional droplets travel. So
we suggested aerosol.
We suggested, kind of a aerial type of contagion. The virus being airborne, and that's what happens with measles. There are a number of viruses that are airborne. At that point, we learned something new that we didn't know before, and the guidance. That's why the guidance changes. 200 years ago, you would get bled out if you had a fever with leeches, because it was believed to be a heating of the blood. Now, if you get fever, you take fever-reducing substances. Might be pharmaceuticals, might be herbs, might be whatever else. But we take for granted that you don't have to bleed out a person to reduce a fever, right? We learned that. It took us 200 years it took us 1800 years to learn that up to 200 years ago. But then we learned that we don't do that anymore. So similarly, we thought that COVID was spreading only through surfaces and direct contact. We learned that that isn't true, because we're seeing cases through direct experience. We saw that that isn't true, and therefore we change our behavior accordingly.